beautiful thing in the world. You got to be an asshole to wear shorts like this when you've got legs this white. Has anybody ever heard of a city called New Orleans? Anybody? Vaguely. I know we're mainly Americans in here, so geography is probably not your strong suit. But it's this very fantastic city. No matter where I've ever been in the world, New Orleans is still my absolute favorite city. It's the only place you can exchange beads for drugs, sex, pretty much anything. And when I had just graduated from high school, I was determined to go pick up my friend Scott, who had moved out to Indiana because he had fallen in love with a girl. God, that's stupid. And somehow two of our other friends got mixed into this. So the three of us were flying out to Indiana to get Scott, drive down to New Orleans, and then head back. And I like to think that the four of us hanging out together were kind of like what would happen if you actually crossed the beams from the Ghostbusters, like, guns. We were like the much more mentally handicapped A-team version. Instead of like a B.A. Baracus, instead we had Scott, who was like 9 feet tall and was the most like frightening looking person ever, but all he liked to do was sit around and debate things. Like, he never hit anyone. He was just like, well, I don't know if that's really what the Bible says. Oh. Then you had Adam, who was the most hilarious person I have ever met, but was a complete psychotic asshole. This is a guy who took a stuffed gorilla, put its feet underneath the hood of his car, and he would sit there at stoplights and stare at pedestrians on the side of the street. And then when the light would turn green, he would hit the accelerator and scream, "Spank my monkey." And the gorilla would literally spank itself. And then there was Ryan. And Ryan, to this day, he's a year older than I am, so that means he's 19. Ryan grows no facial hair. He's a very physically attractive guy, but he can't take like this all the time. How's it going, guys? Everybody having a good time? So the four of us were not ever meant to travel on a car together. But we get down into New Orleans, and, you know, we're all just, like, walking around doing our own thing. And most people don't realize that at about 3 in the morning, during the weekends, New Orleans, like, Bourbon Street explodes about that time. During the weekdays, suddenly about 3 a.m. hits, and Bourbon Street turns into, like, the butt crack of civilization. Like, there's, like, tumbleweeds blowing through and, like, 2 crack dealers, if you're lucky. And we're there one night, and it's our last night in New Orleans, and we've got to wake up and be out of the hotel room at like some ungodly hour, like noon. So I'm trying to rope everybody up. Everyone else is drunk but me, and we finally kind of all meet together, and it's on Bourbon Street. 3 a.m. hits, and all of a sudden there's the 4 of us, and one very, very scary gentleman. Have you ever met somebody who tries to be scary? Like maybe they're big or you know, just got a weird look in their eyes or something, but they're not quite scary because you're like, oh, dude, you're trying to scare me. This guy was a fucking nightmare, okay? Like, he literally was plucked from the imagination of every scared child on the planet. And Scott, who is already like 9.5 feet tall, was dwarfed by this gentleman. And the guy is just trying to talk to us, and he's like, well, do you guys want some hookers? And we're like, no. And we're like trying to walk away, and he's like, well, do you want some crack? And I'm like, no, dude, fuck. And after he goes through a laundry list of stuff, he finally whips out this cheap little mask that's got gold flakes on it. And he goes, do you want an authentic King of Mardi Gras Day parade mask? It's normally like $10,000, but I'll sell it to you for $100. And this is where I learned that all 4 of us came to this paradise for completely different reasons. Now, I was convinced, like, oh, this is a scam, and you always run away from scams, right? Adam was just pissed, but thought it was more funny to just stand around and make fun of everybody involved. And Ryan was, I'm pretty sure, legitimately scared, because he was the only other person that wanted to go back and get sleep. Scott, on the other hand, he knew it was some kind of scam, but he didn't care. He just wanted to see how cheaply he could get this mask off this dude. After we spend about an hour on Bourbon Street with Scott sitting there going like, no, dude, I'll can like $10. I'll give you $10 for it. And the guy's like, no, 15. Keep in mind, this was supposed to be a $10,000 mask. Finally, I'm just like, dude, I'm tired. I'm going. So I turn to leave. Ryan's like, yeah, screw you guys. I'm coming too. And so the two of us start walking off. And as soon as we do, and to this day, all four of us disagree on what happened. I saw a guy on a bicycle ride straight up and get right behind Scott. Ryan saw a dude across the street start to walk over. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to be on the news. But I was like, fuck, Ryan. So I grab Ryan. We walk back over, and now Scott has gotten the guy down to $3. And I'm not kidding you, just like that scene from I'm Gonna Get You, Sucka. The guy's like, okay, $3. And so Scott pulls out a 5, and the guy tries to make change by pulling out a wad of cash. And this was no like, oh, I just have the hundreds on the outside, and it's all like ones on the... It was all $100 bills. I don't know if they were real or not. But this guy had a grip of cash on him. Homeboy had no singles. So Brian and I roll back and we're like, dude, Scott, let's just go. Another 20 or 30 minutes rolls by. Scott's like, no, dude, it's $3. You've got to make change for me. And we're all sitting there and we're like, fuck, we have enough change to make $3 goddamn dollars. We scraped together like $2.50, but that wasn't good enough for the dude. So finally, I'm just like, Scott, we have to go. So I grab Scott. I don't normally like to get physical. I grab Scott. I start walking him away. And Rand's like, yeah, fuck you, Scott. And I don't really know what happens, but Scott eventually gets so pissed before we make it back to the hotel, he walks off by himself. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to sleep. When we wake up at about 10 a.m. the next day, and it takes us an hour to clean the hotel room so that I'm comfortable with not getting charged for damages. We end up finding Scott laid out by the pool downstairs, so I guess he just slept out by the swimming pool all day. So we gather each other up, and it was a very awkward drive back to San Diego. And it wasn't for another 8 years that I realized that Scott had found a little sticker on the inside of the mask that had said 99 cents. So he still felt like he was getting ripped off. And apparently Ryan punched Scott in the stomach, and I missed this entirely, but that's what the fake youth cat was for. And I would not have punched Scott in the stomach, especially if I were Ryan. But we ended up making it back to San Diego, and unfortunately Scott never got that mask.